Thank you. Someone handed me a note here. Dear Mr. Nimoy, welcome to Edinburgh. My family and I are great admirers of all your work, and especially your role as Dr. Spock in all his work. I have an identity problem. I think it began immediately after the show went on the air in 1966. The first incident I remember, and I've written about it, was the annual parade in Hollywood. It takes place around Thanksgiving time, coming up just next week, as a matter of fact. And it's on Hollywood Boulevard, famous street. Thousands and thousands of people turn out. It's the beginning of our Christmas season. And traditionally, it's a great event for families to come out and see this wonderful parade, great bands and cowboys on horseback, and celebrities riding down the street in open convertibles to see their fans. And Bill Shatner and I were invited to ride the parade in November of 1966. We'd only been on the air with Star Trek a couple of months, and we thought it might be interesting and enjoyable. Give us a chance to see our fans for the first time, and them a chance to see us. So we went, and we were seated in the car and riding down the boulevard. And at various locations along the boulevard, there are public address systems and announcers telling the crowds on the sidewalk who's coming down the next car, so they know who to watch for. And as we came down the street, I heard the announcer shout, "Here they come, the stars of the new television series Star Trek, Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock, with a big hand to William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy." Bill turned to me and said, "You remember that for a long time." I certainly have. Then we had the other kind of crowd, not long after that. There was enormous interest in the show, the Spock character, and became enormously popular. And there was a great desire on the part of fans to get in touch. I was terribly naive about what it was all going to mean. I hadn't even bothered to change my telephone number when we went on the air. And in 1966, in Edinburgh, when Star Trek went on the air and I went on as Mr. Spock, my telephone number was still listed in the Los Angeles telephone record. All you had to do to look me up was look under the ends, and there I was. And a lot of people did. It took a little getting used to. Shortly after we went on the air, I went out to speak at a college in a small town called Billings, Montana. And I certainly expected that I would have my privacy there. I wouldn't hardly anybody. It was a very small population of buildings and hardly known. When I arrived in Billings, I was picked up at the airport and taken to a local hotel, checked in the afternoon, and went in to change my clothes and get ready to be taken to an event. And I was only in the room about 5 minutes when the phone rang. And I wondered who would be calling me. I answered, I said, "Hello." And a young female said, "Oh, is this Mr. Nimoy?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Oh, this is so exciting for me to be able to talk to you in person. It was very nice. Who are you?" And she said, "My name is Sally." I said, "Sally, where are you calling me from?" And she said, "I'm in St. Louis." And this was such a great thrill. I watched Star Trek and I loved Mr. Spock. I said, "Sally, how did you find me?" She said, "I heard you were going to be speaking in Billings, and I called all the hotels and motels until I found the one." I said, "It's very resourceful. Congratulations. And it's really a pleasure to talk to you, but I've got to go about my business, so thank you for your interest. Keep watching the show. Hope you enjoy. God bless." And we say goodbye. I finished my business in the room and I headed to the door. 2 or 3 minutes later, the phone rang again. I went to pick it up and said, "Hello?" I said, "Hello, Mr. Nimoy?" "Yeah." "Hi." I said, Who are you?" She said, "My name is Mary." "Mary, where are you calling me from?" She said, "I'm calling from Denver." "Mary, how did you find me?" "Sally called me from St. Louis." Started getting a lot of fan mail, and which was very gratifying. And when it first started coming, they brought me a batch of letters. I thought, this is very touching, and I really would enjoy corresponding with these people. So I will answer by dashing off notes and autographing photographs during my lunch hour. I have a sandwich, and while I'm eating, I will do this. And I did for the first 2 or 3 weeks, and then the mail started coming in larger quantities, and then it started coming in large sacks. And I needed help to take care of it. So I negotiated a new kind of arrangement with the studio, which was Desilu at the time, that was making the Star Trek shows, and they made me a proposal to provide me with some help and an allowance per episode, $100 per episode, to take care of the fan mail, which was not an extraordinary amount of money, but was very helpful. And then, after a while, I had passed, I got this memo, which I published in the book, from the head of business affairs at Edinburgh, a man named Ed Prostein, who said, "Dear Leonard, for the past several weeks I've been consulted with respect to the operation in regard to your personally handling your fan mail, and I have iterated myself many times with regard to the agreement that I made with respect to our obligations to you in this connection. For purposes of clarification to you and the others receiving copies of this memo, I would like to iterate the agreement that was made. Desilu, in addition to your compensation, agrees to pay you $100 toward your secretary and equipment needs for your personally handling the fan mail. All equipment is to be furnished by you, other than that specifically enumerated herein below. We agree to furnish you the following: the photographs of you that we select, all postage with respect to fan mail, which the studio would normally cover under its existing fan mail facilities, stationery designated by Desilu for fan mail, and not your own personal, unapproved stationery. Envelopes will be furnished by Desilu. It is not intended, nor was it specifically agreed, that we would furnish you with pencils, pens, etc., which we assumed you would furnish yourself. For the requests that you have made, which I have rejected, which we will charge you for, items such as staplers, staples, pens, pencils, pencil sharpener, memo pads, special stationery, applications for memberships in Leonard Nimoy fan clubs. And any expense in connection with fan clubs is something that we are not responsible for, as this goes beyond the Star Trek series, and which I personally consider an item of a personal expense. And he goes on to say, this is not a witch hunt. Oh, really? Anyway, he asked for any response if there are any questions, and I thought, a memo like this does call for a response. So the following day I said, "Dear Ed, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to send me your memo, clarifying or attempting to clarify our agreement as regards to fan mail, supplies, etc. My impression is that there are 2 primary issues raised in your memo. I should like to deal with them forthwith so that we may arrive at a satisfactory understanding. The first issue seems to be that which has to do with the provision of pens, pencils, etc. I hasten to assure you that my secretary and I have managed to steal enough pens and pencils from various offices around the studio. So we will no longer need to make requests in this area for some time. The second area deals with those expenses, and I quote from your memo, in connection with fan clubs. In this area, we may have to create a subdivision, since not all of the 160 fan clubs could in all fairness be considered completely personal. I list here with a few examples of some of the clubs which might fall out of the personal category. Crew of the Enterprise, Mobile, Alabama. Star Trek Association, Los Angeles, California. Spock, Los Angeles, California. The Star Trek Club, Jackson Heights, New York. Vulcanian Enterprises, Brooklyn, New York. Those are some examples of clubs which I feel fall most predominantly in the Star Trek area and cannot in all fairness be considered personal clubs. Then there are those which I feel we should split. For example, Nimoy Enterprise, San Jose, California. Leonard Spock Nimoy Fans, British Columbia, Canada. Yeoman Enterprises, Pontiac, Michigan. The name of the ship in this case being spelled forward and my name being spelled backward, perhaps we ought to go for a 75 versus 25% split of the expense. In fairness to all parties involved, may I suggest that we arrange for a periodic audit of the fan club files in order to determine where the expenses should rightfully fall. Perhaps Price Waterhouse would be available for such an audit, and we can arrange for a dramatic presentation of the findings in a sealed envelope. Yours for fair and equitable allocation of expenses, Leonard Nimoy. Now, Robert Justman, who was our associate producer during the first couple of seasons of the series and later producer of Next Generation, wonderful guy with a great sense of humor. He saw these memos going back and forth. He joined the fray on June 14, 1960, and he said, "Here, Ed, I've received copies of correspondence between Leonard Nimoy and himself recently. With respect to Mr. Nimoy's memo of June 13th, I should like to report to you that I've noticed that pens and pencils have been disappearing from my office." Nominal rate. I don't have proof, so I don't think that I can logically accuse anyone. However, I staked out my office the other night in an attempt to identify the guilty party. Unhappily, some unknown assailant sneaked up behind me and clamped a fiercely vice-like grip somewhere between my neck and shoulder. I lost consciousness within a short second and did not awaken until several minutes later. To my dismay, I noted there were more supplies missing from my house. Whoever attacked me and stole my supplies must have been endowed with a quite superior sense of hearing, as I am certain that I made no noise, and in fact was quite careful to breathe as lightly as possible. Incidentally, getting back to fan mail, this past season, I've received 3 fan letters. I answered them post haste. Please send me the money to cover the post. The series was canceled at the end of the 2nd season. There were 110,000 letters sent to NBC, the network, complaining about cancellation. NBC put the show back on for 1 more season, and then it was over. Or so we thought. And I expected that we would have a season or 2 of reruns, like most series, and then would quietly go away. And it seemed to behave that way for the first couple of years. I went to work on Mission Impossible for a couple of seasons. And then suddenly, around 1971, 72, I began to be aware that I was getting more and more requests for interviews about Star Trek, more and more requests for appearances about Star Trek. The first Star Trek conventions took place. We expected a few hundred people, and thousands showed up. And there was suddenly, in the U.S. at least, this phenomenon, this news event was taking place, this extraordinary growth of the Star Trek audience, like an explosion. And the reason seemed to be that Star Trek was now available in syndication, which meant that local TV stations around the country could program the show at times that they felt were convenient for their local audience. They didn't have to take it at the time that the network chose to put it on the air on the entire country, but could choose a time locally to play it. And a tremendous audience was developing. And now, this audience, which was watching it sometime every night, would be very often on, in certain cities, 5 or 6 o'clock every night, or there were marathon showings starting at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning and running all the way through Saturday and into Sunday night. 20 or 30 episodes in a straight through run. College courses, hours were being changed to avoid competing with the Star Trek. It was amazing. And in fact, some creative professors in colleges were using Star Trek episodes as an example of the subject matter they were teaching. So they would show an episode in the class and then talk about what themes and what issues were being dealt with in the episode as part of the college curriculum. There was a tremendous hunger for new Star Trek, and there wasn't any. There was no new Star Trek. There were the 79 episodes that we introduced and no more. And people the hunger was growing enormously. I likened it to, there was a show called, perhaps you saw it, called Little Shop of Horrors. There was a plant that needed to be fed constantly, and it was a talking plant that said something like, feed me, feed me. And that's what the Star Trek audience sounded like. Feed us, more Star Trek. It was hunger was out here. There was nothing coming. I've been writing some books of poetry around that time, and my publisher said, would you be interested in doing a book about your Star Trek experiences? And I thought I could easily do that. I've been talking about it a lot to audiences around the country, and I think I know what the questions are that people are curious to have answered. And I sat down and wrote a book. The book had chapters such as a chapter on my favorite episodes, how I got the job as Mr. Spock, how the makeup was developed, what effect Spock had on Star Trek had on my family and on my personal life, what effect it had on my career, other characters that I had portrayed before Spock that gave me a sense of how to portray an alien, going all the way back to Zombies of the Stratosphere in 1950. It was a very interesting book, and I thought informative, and a rather kindly and loving book. I talked about the fact that I cared a lot about Star Trek and Spock, and I said in that book that if I had to choose to be identified with one character on television for the rest of my life, I would choose Spock. I said I like him, I admire him, he stands for dignity and intelligence and a lot more, and whatever that rubs off on me, fine, I think it would feel good, I enjoy that, I have no problem with being identified with Spock. While I was writing the book, I had an experience at the San Francisco airport. It was a pivotal moment for me. I was recognized by a lady who had a small child. The child was perhaps 6 or 7 or 8 years old, little boy. And she marched over in front of me and she said, "Well, Johnny, look who's here. Look who's standing right in front of you." The boy looked at me. There was no recognition. And she said, "This is your favorite person. You watch him on television every week." I stared. Wasn't getting the message. And Mom said, "Johnny, this is Mr. Spock." He stared, and I'm sure he was thinking, "Mom's lost it." For him, Spock is not standing there. And I understood, I was probably to a part of the expression fascinated by that experience. It intrigued me. The lady was using a shortcut, a language shortcut, that we all understand, we all use, but in fact she was being inaccurate. She was saying, "This is Spock." What she meant to say was, "This is the actor who portrays Mr. Spock." Johnny knew the difference, and he wasn't going to buy it. Now, this is really interesting. And I wrote about that in the book, and in the book that I was writing at that time. And I called the chapter, "I Am Not Spock." And I explained that there are differences, and I explained how an actor goes about building a character from parts of himself and from other aspects, other elements that are brought to him by the writers, by the producers, by the directors, and so forth. It doesn't come out of whole cloth, and it doesn't come entirely from me. I bring something personal to it, but I need help in certain areas and so forth. And I explained all that, or tried to, in this chapter called "I Am Not Spock." And when the book was done, and we needed to have a title for the book, I suggested that we use that title, "I Am Not Spock," in the title of that book. I thought it would be, at least, it would arouse curiosity. And it certainly would let people know it was about my experiences with Star Trek. And the publishers said this is not a good idea. They were concerned about sales, naturally, they're being publishers, and they said, it's a negative title, and books with negative titles don't sell well. And I was very fast, and I said, "What about Gone with the Wind?" And they said, "Fine, whatever, that's what you want." I won the argument. And we called the book "I'm Not Spock." And it turned out to be a sad mistake. The book was not widely distributed. The title was. And a lot of people assumed, and I can understand in that respect, a lot of people assumed that what I was saying was, that's not me. I am distancing myself from this character. Please don't identify me with this character. I have other things to do with my life. That wasn't the message at all. I was trying to create interest and create controversy. And I lived with that for quite a while. It was an unhappy experience. I got some nasty mail, people telling me that I should go back to where I came from, what have you. But what was really unfortunate was that the assumption was that there would be more Star Trek if only I would appear in it. And the book title, in fact, said, "I'm having none of that." And that was the assumption, that I was the one who was preventing Star Trek from having a future. In 1977, about 2 years after I published that book, George Lucas did us all an enormous favor. He made a movie called Star Wars. And when the people at Paramount saw the enormous success of that movie, somebody at Paramount said, "Well, we go, are those, don't we? It's called Star Trek, is that right?" "Yes." "Why don't we do one?" And then the motion pictures were set in motion, and some of this concern began to go away. I had written about the fact in this book that in Star Trek 2, after Spock had died, and at the end of Star Trek 2, I was invited to come back and act if I wanted to in Star Trek 3, and I asked for the directing job. All went well until Michael Eisner, who was then running the studio, he now runs Disney, put a stop to it, and I said, "What's the problem?" And he said, "I can't I can at all times give you the directing job. This was going to be a $15 million movie, Star Trek 3, of a movie with a $15 million budget. And when you hate Star Trek and you want Spock killed. And I said, this isn't true at all. I don't know where you got this impression. And he said, I'm told that it's in your contract for Star Trek 2 that Spock died because you insisted that he should die. And I said, no, that's not true. And I said, I was talking on the phone. I said, the contract was in the building that you're sitting in. I go, why don't you have your lawyers go and take a look at it and see if there's any truth to what they said. Well, I said, it's not true, then let's talk about it. But he had heard the rumors. And somebody told him that Spock had died, and this was an extension of the I am not Spock syndrome that I was showing the directing character. So it almost cost me a directing job. In any case, after I directed Star Trek 3, they asked me to do Star Trek 4, 3 on the baby, then suddenly I had a directing career, and all went swimmingly after that. And for many years, people have asked me if I would ever consider doing a sequel to I Am Not Spock. And I've got to jokingly saying, well, yes, someday, maybe I will. Maybe I'll call it, well, maybe I am, you know. But I couldn't quite get a fix on exactly what I wanted the book to deal with. Yes, it would be a sequel. Yes, it would be a memoir of the last 20 years since I Am Not Spock. But what is it really all about in terms of my relationship with this character? What is the real story? And what is the ending of the story? How does it end? If there is an ending. I didn't have an answer to that question until we made Star Trek 6. When we did that, which was the last Star Trek film which I appeared at Spock, there was a scene near the end of the movie, you may recall, when Spock had discovered that he'd been betrayed by his colleague, his fellow Vulcan, Valeris, and he is somewhat out of sorts with himself for letting it happen. And in a scene with Captain Kirk, who's urging him to get back to work, Spock said something like, is it possible, this is to Kirk, that you and I, we too have become so old and so inflexible as to have outlived our usefulness? And of course he's talking to Kirk about usefulness in Starfleet. And as I said the line to Bill Shatner, I sensed the masks of characters slip away. And I began to understand that I could very easily be talking to my friend Bill Shatner as Leonard Nimoy and saying, is it possible that we have outlived our usefulness in Star Trek? And when that happened, I didn't think about it afterward, I realized that I had found such common ground with the character of Spock, standing in his shoes that day, and speaking for him and for myself, that I thought now I have an understanding of how I could do this book and have some sense of closure and call it I Am Spock. I've come to that moment in my life where I feel totally comfortable with it. And still to this day, to this moment, I feel that I carry a persona with me. It's not exactly me, but somehow it's very close to me. There are two of us walking around together. I hear from him regularly. I don't tell a lot of people this, but I'll tell you that I sense a presence. I know that for a lot of people, Spock has been very important and interesting, and certainly at least entertaining. It's not educational part of their lives. It means a lot for me to know that. There was a day goes by that somebody doesn't say to me, this Star Trek and Mr. Spock have been important to us, our family. Thank you for the entertainment, thank you for the enlightenment, thank you for the inspiration, whatever. And it's a wonderful thing to carry this. To this day, the press often will still ask me, don't you feel some sense of having been dominated by this character? Well, the answer is definitely no. I've had a wonderful, wonderful 30-year ride. It has given me great opportunities to do things that I never expected to do. You have to understand that I set out to try to make a living as an actor. And I've been blessed with all of that and a lot more, for which I'm extremely grateful. So the book is done. It's out there. It seems to be well received. Will there be any more Spock? I frankly don't see that in the future. I do feel we've come to a sense of closure. Yes, I know, as you probably do, that Spock appeared in an episode of Next Generation called Reunification. The last time we saw him, he was under deep cover doing ambassadorial work in the Romulan Empire. They talk between the Romulans and their ancient enemies, the Vulcans. And if he's successful, we may hear about that someday. We'll actually go and visit that place and see what's going on there, or should we get a verbal report from somebody. But in any case, that's the last I've seen of Spock, except that I did write to him. And I asked him to do an introduction to this book. I'll read a little bit of his response. He's not quite as sanguine about the identity issue as I am these days. He said to me, "Dear Mr. Nimoy, I write this note in response to yours, which asks, would you consider writing a foreword to my new book? This book, you inform me, contains a saga of your experiences in your various capacities as actor, writer, director, and producer of Star Trek stories. It is to be called I Am Spock. I must admit to some degree of confusion. By all accounts, I'm in full possession of my memory, and I distinctly recall the title of your previous book on your website. It was, in fact, entitled I Am Not Spock, which seemed both logical and accurate, since indeed you are not Spock, and I've always believed and shall continue to believe that I am. To indulge in a human colloquialism, have you lost your small glass gaming spheres? I herewith take the liberty of reminding you of a dialogue between us in the aforementioned publication. Nimoy said, Spock, this competition between us is silly. And Spock said, I am not aware that one exists. And Nimoy said, well, it does, and it's silly. Don't forget that I'm real, and you're a fictitious character. And Spock said, are you sure? That's the introduction as well. So we have time to do that. We have time for questions. What would you like to ask? Yes. You have to speak up. Who was my first? My first love? Who was my first love? This is a personal question. That's very good for over. What's the next question? Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Towards the end of the third season, there was some really bad episodes. You ever managed to walk away?
There was some really bad episodes and what?
Towards the end of the third season, there was a lot of really bad episodes. You ever sort of tempted just to start that day?
Yeah, particularly in the third season, you're right. I have said in the past that I felt we did our best work in the first and second season, and the third season was questionable. At the end of the third season, because it had been a rocky road that third year, I mixed feelings when we were canceled. I thought, I'm sad to see the show end. I'm relieved that we don't have to worry about it getting worse from here. I thought we had done a proud body of work, and I was more interested in keeping that intact than simply pushing on just for the sake of manufacturing more product. Unless there was some real substance to it, I felt we should not continue. So I have mixed feelings at the end of the third season. If we could have done some more good work, we would have happily done it, but there was no guarantee. And Gene Roddenberry was gone and left the show by the time Gene Kuhn, who was an excellent producer for us and designed a lot of our best material in the second season, was gone, and we couldn't seem to find our footing again. So I was concerned about continuing. Yes, the gentleman here. My opinion of the new series. I have seen quite a bit of the next generation. I have seen very little, really, of Deep Space Nine and Voyager. My immediate reaction when they first told me of the idea to do a new series, which would be done with an entirely new crew, an entirely new cast, frankly, was skeptical. I'm sure it had to do with my ego. I thought, how can they do that without us? The answer was very nice, in fact. 7 very successful seasons. I think they had some wonderful talent on the show, and they did some very good stories. I envy them the great production values they were able to bring to the show, because they were working with much more generous budgets and much more ample time than we had. We shot our show very, very quickly. very inexpensively, as you know. If you watch something that shows carefully, you can see the rocks shake as we walk by. But on the other hand, our shortage of funds, I think, created some ingenuity on our show. And we had to be resourceful and find interesting and clever ways to get around the short budgets. But their shows have been handsomely mounted, and I think for the most part very good. I know that Deep Space Nine has not had as much success as the Next Generation series. My only thought is that it's about a space station rather than a spaceship. And Star Trek is supposed to be about boldly going somewhere, and the space station doesn't go. So that may be a problem for them. And it's the sense of adventure that they have to struggle to capture. Yes, yeah. Help me, if I would be tempted to come back that spot, would I be tempted? Oh. Oh, thank you. If I did not come back to spot, would I come back to direct? Yes, of course I would. I may have my phone number then. They asked me to direct the last film, the Generations film, and to appear in it. The role that they offered was very, very small. The story really was essentially about the Next Generation cast and Luke Shatner and that story that you saw. There was a token handful of lines of dialogue to Spock, and I thought I'd really rather not do a token performance of Spock. If Spock is going to be meaningful to the story, I'd be happy to kind of work. As far as directing the project was concerned, I simply was not attracted to the story that they wanted to tell. I read the script, I was not attracted to it, and I decided that perhaps we'd better find someone who could get really enthusiastic about it, because I could not, frankly. And I let it go with that. But if they would call again, ask me to read the script, I'd be happy to. Yes. Well, it was a missed opportunity? Frankly, yes. I think the major event for Generations, if the title is to be taken seriously, in my opinion, should have been at least the two captains really dealing with each other through the entire story, or that are still the two crews. I can envision the story taking place between the two ships. And either one of them, somebody discovering there's another enterprise out there with a crew, and who they think they are, get out of it. I think it would have been great fun to explore that issue. But somehow it got brought down, to me, became a story about some person who wanted to get someplace and ended up with I just wasn't interested in telling that person's story. It didn't mean enough to me to spend the time on it. Yes, sir. Can you be a little louder, please? When I was filming the final scene for Spock? Oh, are you talking about Star Trek 2? Yeah, well, I heard about that. A very, how can I describe it? It was a very complicated day for me, a very emotional day at the apartment. When the first Star Trek movie was done, when Star Trek the motion picture was finished, there had been, as I said, this tremendous hunger for more Star Trek. And the announcement went out that it's happening. There will be a Star Trek motion picture. Big event, big event. And I remember the day that they called a major press conference for the announcement that the entire cast had been brought back, and we were all going to do this. And there were hundreds of press arrived at Paramount, and we were all gathered there to answer questions. And we were about to embark on the making of this movie. And there was lavish money spent, and the feeling was that during the making of our television series, we could not afford the great special effects, and now we can with this major motion picture. And this major motion picture had some glorious special effects. What it did not have was a great story. And we saw these glorious shots of the Enterprise, and then another glorious shot of the Enterprise. Then a fantastic shot. And it went just so far. But what it did do was, at least for the moment, said to this audience, all right, here's a Star Trek motion picture. And when that was done, I thought, well, all right, we've done Star Trek, the motion picture. There was no plan to do 5 or 6 or 7 films. There was a plan to do Star Trek, the motion picture, and it was done. Now, given that, I was very surprised when one day I heard that Hark Bennett, who I knew, friend of mine, a producer, had been hired to develop a script for another story in motion picture. And he was at my home one day for gathering. All this is in the book, by the way. And he said to me, "How would you like to play a great death scene?" Well, that's great bait for an actor. I mean, you say an actor, "I'd like to play a great death scene." Certainly, you get an actor's attention. I said, "Well, we have to talk about it." And they wrote this script, which I thought was very good. And they wrote this Spock story about Spock saving the ship, and it was a very powerful story and a very powerful scene. And I thought, this is quite good, and perhaps this will be the last Star Trek movie. And if so, why not go up and blaze of glory? And I signed on. We went to make the film, and each day I could see that this film had the esprit, it had a sense of adventure, fun, comedy, whatever drama that we had always searched for and hoped for in making the series. And I thought, this film is working. This is fun to do. And then came the day when we had to film the death scene, and I thought to myself, I think I've made a terrible mistake. This is the day that I say goodbye to the Spock character. And we filmed the scene. It was a difficult scene physically to do because of the conditions that I described. It was a painful scene emotionally to do for reasons that I'm sure you can understand. And when it was over, I was very depressed and drove home and in silence thought to myself, I really let this Spock character down. I've done a terrible thing here. I made a terrible mistake. And a few weeks later, when the film was finished, I was invited to come to a screening of the movie at Paramount, at the studio. It was a screening for people who had made the film and our families and friends. There were about 400 people. It was a fairly small gathering for an event like that, a private screening. And we all were there to watch the movie for the first time. And it began to unfold on the screen. And as I expected, it was a very effective movie. And then suddenly comes the point near the end of the film when the ship is in trouble, limping away on impulse power, and needs to escape from this terrible event that the con has set off this thing to detonate. And I hear Kirk say to Scotty, "Scotty, I need warp speed in 4 minutes, or we're all dead." And there's no response from Scotty because we know that Scotty is unconscious down in the engine room. And we see Spock listening to all of this and taking it all in. We see Spock get up out of the chair and head to the elevator, and I know where he's going. And he was going down the engine room to save the ship and die. And I wanted to leave. I began to choke up watching that exit. I thought, it's coming now. I really don't want to see this. I was upset about it. But I thought, if I leave, this audience is going to believe that I hate this movie. And I was starting these rumors all over again about me and Spock. So I better stick to it, and I did. I sat quietly, tears rolling down my cheeks during the death scene, just like everyone else did. And then that was over, and we saw the Spock tube rolling down in the chamber to be ejected out of the ship. There was Scotty playing the bagpipes. There was Kirk doing the eulogy. Of all the souls I've met in my travels, his was the most human. I thought, this is powerful stuff. This is working very, very well. And then suddenly, up on the screen, I saw something that had not been in the original script. We cut to this planet's surface, and we see the camera pan through some leafy flora and fauna and through some mist, and there, revealing Spock's tube intact on the planet's surface. And I thought to myself, I'm going to be getting a call from Paramount Pictures. And of course, they called, and one thing led to another, and we revised Spock and Star Trek 3. But all of that was not, what happened after that was not planned. I really thought we were saying goodbye, and it wasn't until after I saw the movie put together that I began to realize that there was a chance for Spock to make a return. So, I think I have to wrap up because you folks have to get home to wash your hands around it, all right?